Or before 2022? Before 2022, I was more into reportage and commercial photography. I had my own little portrait studio in Ukraine, in Kyiv. But since I fled the war last year, I work more in documentary photography. And right now I'm working on this project. It's an ongoing project. My mom wants to go back home. And also I just started a new project. It's called "На чужій землі," which in translation from Ukrainian means on a foreign land, not in, but on, literally. Yeah, and right now I'm working on a book with Dutch design bureau Main Studio, and it will be released by Yapsam Books, hopefully this November.
I might just also show a selection of the project as we're talking to give people a sense of what's going on with it. And this is the video piece that is in our downstairs gallery on the screen. See you there. So what is the story of this project, Hanna? My mom wants to go back home. Can you tell us? You know, I mentioned it was about having to leave your home in Ukraine, and you mentioned it as well yourself. But what is how does this project come about for you? Where does it start?
It started in the very beginning of the war, when I came home. I came to my native town from Kyiv, where I was living like for 15 years, and tried to persuade my mom to move from Ukraine. And when I finally persuaded her successfully, we took a train. And in the morning, when we were already far away from east of Ukraine, we were on the west of Ukraine, I felt this urge to start documenting something just about our trip, because photography was the only thing that gave me some confidence and gave me some certainty. And I made first pictures. I didn't think about it as a project or something. I was just, documenting our moments. And then when I published it, it became, people started reposting it, and people started texting me about these photos. And then in the first week, since I started shooting this work, newspapers started approaching me, and different media outlets. So then I realized that, well, this is interesting not only for my family album, but also for a bigger audience. So that's how I continued. And right now it's like, it became a really big project. It's over 300 pictures already pre-selected for the book. Mm-hmm. So, and I still continue shooting. On the screen, you see it in a little bit lower quality. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a really beautiful project, despite it's very, it starts very dark, but then it becomes brighter, I would say. Yeah. But for me, beauty is still important, and also in this project.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, this is a very difficult situation that you're dealing with, having to leave your home under these circumstances. Like, what is going through your mind when you're making these pictures? Are you just reacting to the situation, or are you consciously choosing to document certain things?
It's both, I would say, because I think because of this project, also I managed to gain the sense of control, because this is how I am telling my story. This is not how I am pictured by someone else, but this is how I choose to picture my story, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's a big advantage that I am able to, witness firsthand the story of my mother, because obviously I'm telling the story through her, not through myself. But it's obviously what is going on with me as well. So on one hand, I don't really filter what I'm shooting, because I just shoot what I think is interesting or is important or is like relative to the situation or my feelings in the current moment. But on the other hand, obviously, you are the author of, I'm the author of my work, of my photography, and still I frame it, I select it, I then, edit that, and it gives me the sense of controlling my own story.
At the same time, do you feel a certain amount of responsibility because you're dealing with something that's your own experience, but also a news story? Do you feel a certain amount of responsibility to represent that experience of being essentially a war refugee?
I do feel that through my story, people can get to know more about what it is and how it is to be a war refugee. In the same time, I don't really censor myself. Yes, I pre-select what I show, but I don't censor myself. I mean, in the story, you can see dark moments and bright moments. Right now, for example, but also there is like a really dark story behind those bright pictures. And you can also keep it in mind while you're looking through the exhibition and through the future book. You can still keep it in mind, right? That all those funny, joyful pictures are taken on a background of the war that is going on, and that's why we are there. That's why we are like doing this and are being in this situation. What was the question?
Whether or not you felt a certain responsibility to represent the experience for people.
I do feel a certain responsibility, but it doesn't mean that I have to represent it in a certain way.
Sure.
I wanted to be truthful, but for me, it's more important to stay truthful to the story and truthful to myself than to be, than to represent certain like image what other people could want me to put into all this.
Sure. And is that why you call it a documentary diary rather than a documentary project or a documentary anything else? It's a diary of your experiences.
Absolutely, it's a diary. It's a very intimate project. When you see more pictures, you can feel it, you can sense it. That it's very, it's very quiet atmosphere in the project, even though it's about the war. But it's very, very like low key, quiet, and it's not a striking story. So it's not like an entertainment. It's just someone's diary. Mm-hmm. That you might be willing to show, might be not willing to show to someone, but here it is.
So within that, are there things you still choose not to represent, or you decided were particularly important to represent of that experience, particularly like those first days of you and your mum on the train? Was there something in that you're like, oh, this has to be part of the story, or equally it doesn't have to be part of the story?
No, especially in first days, I had no agenda at all. Yeah. For me, it was, and it still is, and it will always be, the most important is to represent the personality behind the status or behind the, name, the war refugee, the title. So through this project, I show some a personality in development through the story. And this is the only one agenda that I have. And also I want to show my mom like in a truthful way, because she's a very special person, I would say. She's very optimistic, and she's funny and fun. And not every person will be open to be followed with a camera, right? And she was open for that. So I'm really grateful for that. So she completely gave me green light to do whatever I think is relevant, and she trusts me. We always had this like relationship. We trust each other and we respect each other, but also we try to respect each other's boundaries. So there was only one restriction that she gave me, and I follow it unapologetically. It's not to take pictures of her topless. So everything else I'm allowed to do.
Okay, well, that's good. And how does she feel about seeing the images? I mean, is it a strange experience for her to see herself at that time in this project, or is it something she's maybe happy with or proud of to show what it's like?
I think she's excited about this project in general, and she's excited about the book especially. But there are pictures where she doesn't like herself because, first of all, she's a woman, right? And women really pay attention on those things. So there are pictures where she doesn't really like herself, and about those pictures, we sometimes have conversations, and I tell her like, well, this picture is really important for the story. And she's like, why did you even take it? And I'm like, yeah, because you don't see it from a side, but I see it from a side, and I guarantee you it's important. And then she says, okay, like, I trust you, do whatever you think. For example, on our in our exhibition in Dublin, there is one picture that she hates, but you know, the one where she sits on a bed in a room with a head down.
Okay.
She hates that picture, but somehow she also understands that it's a picture that really represents, you know, the continuous state of this, you know, uncertainty, being in someone else's home, someone else's country, and I think that picture is really important for the project.
And equally, a lot of the pictures in the project are once you've arrived, you now live in Amsterdam. So once you and your mum have arrived in Amsterdam, it shows you kind of setting up a new life, you know, for yourselves and having quite happy and quite, in some of the pictures we looked at, quite joyful moments. How important was it for you to include that aspect in the project?
It's equally important as to include the sad pictures, because I mean, we became refugees a year and a half ago, and it's impossible to not have good moments in such a long time, right? So if I just focus on bad moments or sad moments, I mean, this is not truthful, and this is absolutely not what I want to represent and what I want to tell people. And this is definitely not a truthful personality, truthful character that I built through the story. I mean, it's already there, like the character is already there. I just have to truthfully represent it. So for me, it's equally important. And some photos, even like as you said, I'm calling it documentary diary. It is like 100% documentary, right? And in the same time, sometimes we prepare for the shoots. We prepare some little moments. For example, there was 1 week when there was like really nice weather, which is not very often in Netherlands. And my mom, she does morning exercises, not every morning, but some mornings. And I told her, like, I have to shoot you doing exercises. And she's like, oh, no, but I feel not very confident. Like, no, I have to do it because you do it every day. So just next morning, I will wake up and I will take pictures of you exercising. Next morning, I wake up and my mom is already like all dressed up with a lipstick. and she really poses, you know, she does all these poses while exercising. And I thought it's really fun. And I took pictures of her like exercising and posing for the camera. And usually it's like in my project, it's one photo of one kind of moment. But those pictures, I intentionally put them in a sequence. It's like a lot of pictures of her exercising, where she laughs, where she looks in a camera. You know, you can see it is semi-staged. So yeah, I mean, obviously, I want to show all sides of life.
Yeah, and just going back to the early stages of the project, then, I mean, how important was it for you to be representing that experience from, you know, firsthand? Because it's often something, you know, people having to leave their homes fleeing war, it's often something that's represented from the outside by photojournalism, by people just coming into a situation. You know, do you feel it's important for you to be documenting that as the person experiencing it as well?
Yes, absolutely. And this is something I only realized recently, that it's kind of taking power back, because when I just came to Netherlands, for example, I mean, because of the war, people in Europe are just getting acquainted with Ukrainians.
Yeah.
Right? So there was so many misconceptions, misunderstandings, just like ridiculous things. Someone asked me if I know what is Uber. Someone asked me if I have a mobile phone. I mean, it was like, what? And still, recently I had a dinner with friends of my friends, and they are all highly intelligent people, like with high positions in society, etc., etc. And the person who is over 60 years old, and he was working in the art field for his whole life, he asked me, he told me that because of the war, he actually realized that Ukraine is inside Europe because he always saw that it's somewhere in Asia.
Okay.
And I was like, what? So, yeah, what was the question? It was about
representing that experience firsthand, that experience of being a war refugee.
And I think by representing my own story, and again, it's a really unique chance for me to tell this story firsthand. I kind of I feel powerful while doing this, honestly, because nobody can tell my story better than me. And that's what I'm doing. And also, I see how people react to this and how people understand the whole thing instead of just seeing like on the surface, all these refugees, they are this and this and this. And I'm showing that no, it's like so much more. And it's just like normal. Everyone is just a normal person, just like you, just like everyone. And we have our personalities, we have our stories, we have something we're happy about and sad about throughout the whole period of being refugees. I don't know if we ever have chance to go back home. Obviously, hopefully we will, but in the same time, I just want to be seen as a normal and equal person.
Yeah. And has that experience of becoming a war refugee changed your sense of yourself? Do you think do you feel different? Other than the fact that it's very much uprooted your life and kind of upended your life in some ways?
I don't feel different. I have changed in certain spheres of life. Some beliefs have changed, etc., etc. But I haven't changed in the core. I think I remain the same person, I would say. And yeah, this is not like your priorities change. Some of your vision changes, but how can you tell that, oh, now I've changed, right? you don't say it, like you just stay yourself.
Okay, and how do you feel looking back on those pictures from the early days of leaving Ukraine? Is it difficult for you to look at them now, or are you happy at least you have a document of it?
I'm very happy that I have a document of it, but now like I'm so deep inside this project that I don't really I don't really see it as something. I don't see it as the viewers. It's like when you live in a city and you just accept it as it is, but then your friends come to visit and you show them the city again, and you see it from a tourist perspective, kind of through their eyes. So sometimes when I show my work and people start talking to me and they see in my pictures something what maybe I never thought about. So it's very interesting to have these conversations, but it's not like hard for me to see it, but when you are inside this moment, you see it differently. You really do. But then after a while, you sometimes look back and you think like, how did they even handle this? How did they even survive like mentally in all this? Mm-hmm. But then you see you have a documentation that you did survive. Some moments seem completely surreal from a perspective of year and a half. For example, there is a photo when my mother is standing on the border. Honestly, like the least in my life, the least I want to do in my life, the last thing is to go through this experience again. Like crossing the border with my mother in the middle of the winter. It was terrible. But somehow we survived that moment, you know? So it also a reminder that, yeah, if we handle that, like we can handle whatever.
And is there something you would like people to come away from looking at this work with, like not a message necessarily, but an understanding of that experience? What would that be, do you think? Or even just to understand the experience itself in some way?
I also don't have I really don't have the agenda for people who see my work. And I'm always very happy when people have a genuine reaction. When I started publishing these photos, people texted me from all around the world, that we never went through the war, but we have a family. I also love my mom, or I lost my dad when I was like a child, and now I'm thinking that, you know, da 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 da. So people share their family stories with me. And some people from Syria texted me, some people from Iraq texted me, and I was like, wow, you know. So you never know what you can expect, to what kind of reaction you can expect. So yeah, I'm open to whatever reaction it is there. And I think I never received any bad reaction, I think, on this project. So, but even if I received, even if I will receive, I'm ready to discuss it with the person, because like it means that it would mean that their trauma is speaking, right? And I'm curious about like what's going on with them.
Why they were having that kind of reaction to it?
Yeah, you know, when you asked, did it change me or how it changed me, I think I became more empathetic. Mm-hmm. In the same time, like I became more empathetic because before I was like, I had this belief that 99% of the problems, people just put themselves into these problems, and it's like only like a tiny 1% maybe that are real problems that people, you know, cannot influence or cannot predict, and da 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 da. But now I'm more, you know, more more open to other people's insecurities, and not insecurities, but how's it word? Yeah, I forgot the word. Anyway, I'm more receptive to other people's tragedies that they are going through.
Well, it's interesting because, you know, one of the reasons we chose to have this work on at the moment is that it complements our show up here. And while very few people have that experience in Ireland of being a war refugee, or, you know, not certainly people who were born here, but there is that sense of displacement that Irish people understand, of having to emigrate, of having to go somewhere else. So I think that the response people have to your work is in part that it's not just that they know what it's like to be a refugee as such, but it's that they know what it's like to have to leave their homes and so on. So it is that kind of connection that people have to it more so than anything. And that's you know, a big part, apart from its own merit obviously and its significance, but it really fit with our program in that respect. So the other big thing that you're working on is a book of the project as well, so maybe you tell us a bit about that and the whole process around that.
Yeah, it's a big process. I never knew that it's so hard to make a book. I thought it's just like, it's a book. But in fact, I was very lucky that people who are my, I would say, partners in this project are very, yeah, they're just great, honestly. I was super lucky to meet those people through friends, and they immediately jumped in. For example, how do you land yourself like the best designer in the whole like Netherlands, right? It's almost impossible, but for me it was like this. And honestly, when I had the first meeting with Edwin, was my designer, literally I could not hold back my excitement. I was screaming. I was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you want to work on this." It's very encouraging, I would say. And now I'm going through the crowdfunding, and hopefully when we finish this crowdfunding for the book, we will just start, putting things in places. We already have a mock-up of the book, but when we meet with Edwin, all ideas just keep coming. So we have to really, think through what we already planned and what should be put aside, etc., etc. But it's really fun. And I'm very excited for this project, and I'm very excited to have my first photo book done. Especially, this is very important for me. I mean, it's not just a photo book about something. It's about like whatever, I shoot. It's a photo book about myself, my mom, my story. So yeah, it's crucial for me. I told my friend recently that this is a question of life and death for me. I don't know if you have this saying in Ireland.
Yeah.
And she said, "What are you talking about? You're not gonna die if it's not gonna happen." I'm like, literally, this feels like that.
Okay. High stakes.
So what?
So it's very high stakes, it's a big,
very high.
Yeah. When it comes to putting, I know you're still working on a book, when it comes to putting together the book, or in the process of putting together the book, what kind of story were you trying to tell? What were your priorities with like selecting the images, for example, because you have such a big body of work to draw on? What did you really want to focus on?
So first decision that we made is to include only the photos from the period of like 1 year in the Netherlands. Okay. And before, So this is one decision. And also I was thinking about this book as a chronological, and in general, I see my work as a on a chronological base, because I have a background in journalism. So for me, all this like logic has to be very, straightforward and strict. But then I had my work will be exhibited in a big exhibition next year in Utrecht in Fotodoc, and I had a conversation with a curator, and she offered another logic behind this selection and behind how we place pictures together, and it's more based on emotion and visual patterns. Mm-hmm. So there are going to be still chapters of and they will be dedicated to places where we are, like Uzhgorod and then next. But the pictures will be more grouped by, not by chronology. I don't know if I answered your question.
For sure, yeah. No, it's interesting because when we put the installation downstairs in the artist project space, one part of it is leaving Ukraine and one part of it is in Amsterdam. But when we selected the images and did the layout, we didn't know which, whether they were in chronological order. We did it visually to give a sense of like that experience or what we thought that experience was. So maybe we had put them in chronological or not, but the way you do that is visually, and it really makes sense to do that. So it's exciting to hear you're developing the project that way for exhibition and for the book.
That's why for me it's so interesting. It was very interesting to see your selection, because it also gave me some insights. And when I was in Dublin, like 2 days during and after the first day of exhibition, mm-hmm. second day of exhibition, I was listening to what people talk about, and it was also giving me insights, because some pictures that I didn't even think of including into book, you took them to the selection, and they turned out to be favorite pictures of most of the visitors. Okay. I'm like, okay, that's interesting, Yeah, so there are so many ways to do it, and you have to select one way, kind of. But also, for example, we decided to make a cover in a green color. It's going to be green because my mom, she all the time wears green. And in the book, she all the time wears green. So I saw this, you judge a book by its cover. So you know exactly like what you're gonna see in a book when you see a cover.
And it's a good way of acknowledging her presence in the book as well, I suppose.
And also my mother's photos that she was taking throughout the whole journey on her iPhone, not iPhone, but just normal phone, not normal, like LG, whatever. They also will be in a book, which is also super exciting for me.
Yeah. Very nice. And actually, what has the crowdfunding experience been like? Because I know it's a bit of a roller coaster sometimes.
It is a roller coaster. I mean, I received two grants from Mondrian Fund, and Prince Bernhard Fund, which are very respected organizations in Netherlands, and it kind of encouraged me a lot. But also, like I'm doing crowdfunding through the pre-order campaign, and people can buy a book and then fund the book automatically. So yeah, it's going like ups and downs. Sometimes I have to like push, and sometimes I even have to manipulate people and like saying like, if you don't pre-order my book, we're not friends anymore. And then they pre-order. But sometimes it goes like few days, zero donations.
Yeah.
So I have 5 days left. So
still some time.
I'm really
hint to everybody watching and who hasn't already looked at Hanna's book. Just what do you think is the future of the project then, Hanna, once the book is done? Even do you see it continuing on, or what way do you want to develop it?
I will definitely continue shooting it, definitely, because even based on the name of the project, right? My mom wants to go back home. It cannot be like done. It cannot be complete before she actually goes back home. So if it happens in an upcoming future, I will follow her home, and then it's going to be like a trip backwards.
Yeah.
And then like a circle is complete. But if she's not going home, I will just keep shooting. Whenever she goes home, like I will follow her. But I think that when I release a book, I will have more like mental space to do other things, even because right now when I'm shooting my second project, which is also, I think, very important, it is completely different style and visual style and everything. I feel kind of guilty that, I invest some energy into a new project before the previous one is complete.
Do you actually tell us a bit about your new project before we go to questions?
Yeah, it's also, I feel that my message as an artist should be about what it is to be a refugee. So I want to discover different sides of this. And right now I'm shooting young Ukrainians around the world in a very like striking manner, I would say, a very contemporary manner, because pictures about my mother, they're more like documentary / reportage I don't know, artistic, because everywhere I try to do like a perfect composition and everything. Just because my mind works like this. But with this new project, I really, just experiment and don't really even, some pictures are even like very spontaneous. But what I do, I put this young person on the ground in a foreign land, and I take a picture of them because, first of all, because land is one of the central figures in our culture and mythology, and it's something that was like many countries and now Russia was making attempts to take away from us. So it's like really it has a spiritual meaning. It has a very deep spiritual meaning in our mentality. And second, laying on the ground is a universal language of protest all around the world. So it's, for me, this project started at a protest when I just took a picture of a person who is laying on the ground. And then I had this, I had to process, because I really loved that photo. I started like thinking. So that's how I came up with this idea. And it's really going good. It's really going well, I would say. I really like the first results, but this project requires some travels. So I have to find time and money and everything in my schedule and budget to do those travels, to shoot people, not only in Amsterdam. I already have some pictures in Dublin. I'm going to Paris soon, and also already have some appointments with people.
Yeah. So it's a work in progress still.
Yeah. But it's very exciting, honestly.
Good to hear you have the next thing coming up once the book is done.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've been talking for a while, and maybe we'll open it up if anybody in the audience has questions, or anybody here in the museum has questions. But you're online, you can put them into the chat, and maybe Hanna will be able to answer any questions, or if there's anything you'd like to hear more about. Or equally, you can turn on your video and ask Hanna a question as well.
Please don't be shy, and please don't suppress your curiosity.
Anybody have any questions?
Jonathan has a question.
Jonathan.
I hope do you want to read it, or should I?
Yeah, so I hope I remembered it correctly. Hi, Jonathan. Thank you for asking a question. But you said you only started shooting documentary diary style since the start of this project. Have your experiences in this project changed the way you think about your photography and how you approach projects?
Thank you for the question. Yes, big time. Really have changed a lot. I think this project gave me really a lot of confidence as an independent artist, because before I was mostly focusing on commercial work. But now I kind of reshaped my whole process of working, how I work, how I think about things. And also it kind of forced me to learn how to operate in this world as an artist. I'm still like in the process of learning, but my style is changing, and I'm much more open for experiments, I would say, because before I was only, I think in my work, I was like very confident in what I know, and I was always like doing only what works. I knew which style works in my portrait photography. I knew which style works in my like journalism, and I was like, yeah, I will do it because it guarantees results. Now I don't feel that I need the guaranteed results, and I'm more open to experiment. For example, I even like I was always working with a big Canon camera, but since the beginning of the war, like I bought a completely different style camera. It's Fuji, and Fuji X100V, and it also shifted my style, I would say. But before, I would never even think about like buying another camera. I was like completely Canon head. But now I'm like, okay, whatever, just give it to me and I will try.
I think we have another question there.
Yeah, Lana has a question.
You want to put your question in there, Lana, or you can
yes. Hello.
On video there.
Hi guys. Hi Hanna. I'm your student from Ukraine, but now I live in Dublin, and I refugee too. And I have not like a question. I have thank you. Thank you for your exhibition, because yesterday I was there, and I really feel these photos, because it's like a history about me. Because I arrived in Ireland when started war, and it was a very difficult time. It was very difficult time for you, because you lost your all your life, all your scene, important scene, and you start. You start and adaptation and new condition in new country, and you know, your photos, it's like show other people that it's this situation very important, and we are important, still important, because we lose our powerful. No, I feel this. I feel like this, and it's very important. And I feel some. I felt some picture, your picture, like you know, it's like touch my heart. My heart is. You know, I felt like I'm not alone. I'm not alone. Many people who feel the same feeling, and it's very important. Thank you so much for exhibition, and it's yeah. Please to continue this this project, and I would like to buy your book and follow this project on next time and in the future, because it's interesting and it's important, and shows about Ukrainian refugee. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much. Yeah, it's very important for me that you're saying it, honestly, because my target audience is mostly Europeans, to show what Ukrainians are, to deepen this knowledge about Ukrainians through among Europeans, but because we are in Europe, right? But
Yes.
but for me, it's also very important that people from my own country can relate to this, and that they feel represented, because that's what I said, right? That you do feel that the power is taken away from you when you are in this whole like madness. But then through my project, I take back the control, and if people see people from Ukraine who are in the same situation, and not any, like, there is no same exact situations. Like, everyone's story is different, everyone's feelings are different. It's also what I learned through my whole experience. But yeah, it's like hundreds, thousands of Ukrainians had to flee the war, and if I can give them something to relate to, this is like mission complete.
Yes, you give. It's. I feel. Thank you.
Thank you, Lana.
I think we'll leave it there on that lovely note. Thanks everyone for joining us. Just to say before we finish up, we're actually going to extend through popular demand, as I say, we're going to extend the No Place Like Home exhibition until September 9th here in Photomuseum Ireland. We're also going to extend Hannah's exhibition till the 23rd of September. So if you haven't had a chance to come in and see it in person, or you want to see it again, it will be on here until then. We're going to have one more late night event as part of this series on the 31st of August with a talk with Dr. Owen Fitzpatrick, which will be about representations of home in Ireland from the past up to the present day, looking at work in the exhibition as well. So thank you to Hannah for fascinating insight into your project, and thanks so much for sharing your beautiful work with us.
Thank you for having me, and it's really big for me. Being in Photomuseum Ireland is a really big milestone, I would say, and it's very important for me. So even the story how I got there it's also very interesting. So yeah, I don't feel that this is random. I feel that this is one of the, you know, blocks of the chain. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much, Darren, and thank you for great curation and just for being a great personality as well. Okay, thanks everyone. We'll see you all soon. Thank you, guys. Bye bye. Have a great night. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Is her work upstairs?
Her work is downstairs and in the artist project space behind the bookshop. Yeah.
Oh,
okay.